responses that I've heard from people who didn't read the comic and aren't really comic book fans, is like they just couldn't. And I think this is a maybe an American thing. Is like they just couldn't get over the fact that there was a penis on the screen. And it's so juvenile and childish.
Yeah.
To like, I heard people laughing in the theater.
Yeah.
And then the friend who came with us to see it, who hadn't read the comic, he's like, "Why do they have to show that guy's penis?" And all right, they should have explained that in the movie. Right. It would have taken them all of 2 minutes
to explain
that he used to have a costume, and then why he doesn't choose to wear one anymore.
Right.
They should have dealt with that.
Right.
But just the snickers in the crowd, I'm like, Americans are very
pretty
juvenile
prudish,
when it comes to anything sexual.
Yeah.
But they didn't have a problem with the totally ratchet up, over the top violence that was in the movie.
Yeah. Although, and then flipping back to the sex scenes, the scene with Dan and Lori in the Archie.
In Archie, yeah.
When Dan finally can
perform,
that scene was way more explicit in the movie than it was in the comic book.
Oh, a lot more, yeah.
And at one point I was going, gee, did you really need to go that far? I mean, don't get me wrong. The actress who played Lori, I mean, she is a very attractive woman.
Mm-hmm.
Not like I was upset by seeing her. Mm-hmm. And I know Zack Snyder also wanted to probably allude to the fact that people who dress up in costume are kind of fetishes, have a fetish of these things, because she keeps her boots on.
Right.
So maybe that's what he was trying to say. But still, in the comic book,
it was a page and it was like a paneled, and it was like you could see Silk Spectre's like naked body in silhouette. In
silhouette, which is how the sequence started.
Right.
Which I was like,
and then it got pretty.
And then it got really graphic. And I'm like, I don't mean to be a prude about it, but if you're talking about doing a faithful adaptation of the comic book, that seemed to me you were just putting that in for, like you said, the shock value.
Yeah, and that's pretty much like when they were in the alley fighting the gang.
And then, the bone cracking and all that, and none of that was in the comic book.
I mean the fight, yeah, but like I said, like a lot of this stuff seemed to just go over the top, because here's the other. When I was done rereading the graphic novel, I'm like, the first thing that came into my mind, I was like, oh man, I don't know how this is gonna play in the theater at all, because people who don't read Watchmen don't know. They're going to think this is a fucking boring movie. And the guy who we went with and 2 other people who I talked to didn't read Watchmen, they thought it was a boring movie.
And it gets kind of,
And it was one of those things that I think they had to ratchet up the action content to break up the boredom from, the perceived boredom that people might have. Right. And I thought that, though. I'm like, I think people are going to find this kind of boring. And the 3 people who I talked to who didn't read Watchmen, they thought it was kind of boring.
Yeah. No, you're right, because I went with someone who did not read the book. And they also thought the same thing. It lagged. It really lagged in the beginning. And I know, again, Zack Snyder trying to be faithful to the text, to the source material. But hey, you know what? It's the movie that they said they couldn't, the book that they said couldn't be filmed. Mm-hmm. For what it's worth, I think Zack Snyder did an admirable job with it.
No, I agree. It was very well filmed. The cinematography was great. The music was great. Everything looked good.
Well, except for Bubastis at the end. I mean, how much money were they spending, and it still looked like a computer effect? You know.
Well, what the fuck do you want? Well, that was kind of the other problem. And all these problems that I have with the movie are very just small problems.
Right.
Because obviously they couldn't put everything in there.
No, they couldn't.
But they didn't spend hardly any time comparatively to the origin and the whys of Ozymandias.
Ozymandias,
it turns out to be a central character at the end. They don't deal with it, with his origin. They don't deal with his motives or anything. Right. Now, if someone at the end, you're supposed to be like, oh, he's the villain?
Right.
It's like, where did that come from?
Right.
If you were just watching the movie and didn't have any of the background knowledge.
But if you read the comic book, then you would have, you know from the beginning he's the big bad.
Right.
You know it, so. So anyway, I don't know. We'll see what the box office says. I mean, I expect Watchmen's going to be the #1 film of this weekend, but let's see what word of mouth does for it.
And there's already going to be a director's cut. Zack Snyder said in October, and it's going to have an hour because they're going to throw all the pirate stuff.
The pirate stuff. There's 2 more cuts. There's a director's cut where he adds another half hour, and then the ultimate cut or something like that where he incorporates the Tales of the Black Freighter.
Right, which comes out on DVD later this month by itself.
Right. Yeah. So
hopefully some of that Ozymandias stuff will be in there.
Will be in, and it'll make more sense. So. That's what we thought. What did you folks think? We'll leave it up to you. And we're going to end the conversation here. So thank you, folks, for joining us here yet another week. And we hope to see you again real soon.
And getting back to the no negative comments, Batman Battle for the Cowl #1 comes out next week. And I'm looking forward to tearing that thing a new hole.
A new hole?
Because it's written and drawn by Tony Daniel, which killed the Batman books for me. So
Kill the Batman books.
We'll see what happens.
And speaking of negative comments, let's keep it civil on the boards, folks. Let's just keep it civil on the boards. We don't want to have a repeat of what happened last week. And I'm not talking about our regulars. I'm talking about the douchebags who stick their heads in from time to time and just don't know how to be adults. All right, folks. Thanks a lot.